بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا حي يا قيوم برحمتك استغيث. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين. ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا. 14th of December, which is the 13th of Jumada al-Thani, 1446, 2024. Today's video is slightly different than the ones I usually record. We've seen a lot of changes in the world, whether it's Bitcoin hitting a record high, currencies being changed and reconsidered around the world, behaviors being forcibly changed by, I don't know, let's say Rockback. Let's take them as a company.
At BlackRock, we are forcing behaviors. If you don't achieve these levels of impact, your compensation could be impacted, okay? You have to force behaviors. And if you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted. And ultimately, it's still going to take time, but I am just as much shocked as Ken is that we have not seen more opportunities. We're going to have to force change.
How do you force change, though? How do you do something more radical? Have you thought about that? Has the board of American Express thought about more radical things we could do to enhance diversity and inclusion?
Every citizen of the firm has to understand what is acceptable behaviors and what are unacceptable behaviors. If we are not a mirror of who our clients are, we're going to fail. You have to force behaviors. And
we've seen certain regions of the world being changed, in fact celebrated, simply based off of a illusion and dissolved into chaos is how I would summarize everything so far. But still, alhamdulillah, out of chaos, order does originate a solution that sometimes we often overlook, in fact often in front of our own eyes. And I take this not lightly, because in my own life I've seen chaos for a while and order slowly coming to play. But as a Muslim, I know for a fact that order does not remain, neither does chaos. There's always something lurking around the corner. And as far as my ancestors who fought tooth and nail, survived the heats and the colds, the deserts and the storms, just so I can have Kitabullah, the Quran, to follow, often I've neglected it as well. And there is no shying away from that fact. Just like from the fact that Syria, in and of itself, has changed completely. Many people are celebrating the so-called dictator al-Assad being removed. Now, I personally haven't spoken about this to the level that I am about to now. This is simply because since 2011, once Gaddafi was forcibly removed by Hillary Hilton and Barack Obama, we've seen changes that are uncontrollable, in fact incomprehensible for the most part, and Muslims seem to shy away from the reality of the current situation, whilst the people that rule over them continue to make not only millions but also decisions that more often than not most would disagree with. This year we saw the ICC and the ICJ issue arrest warrants for Netanyahu, and you have gallant, interesting figures in history, certainly one of the most vile and arguably the most disgusting, definitely top 5 of all time. But ultimately, they're not really pulling the strings. Of course, Netanyahu got a standing ovation at the White House. He got exclusive invites and deals done through the Allied powers, the Anglo world, and the Russo side of the world, of course, are still facing battles, not only within but also externally, whether it's Wagner and the Ukraine and Donbass, respectively. All I would like to say that the one characteristic of all of these battles and all of these scams is that it's all economical at the end of the day. You know, the Chinese have been working with Mexico hand in hand, producing an infinite number of electric vehicles, it seems, changing the entire supply chain, logistics, and battery technology, as well as the automotive industry. What this means that, of course, we will see not only the rise in electric cars, but also a drop in the reliance. Because at the end of the day, these goods that we all use have an expiry date, from your washing machine to your smart devices to your gaming consoles, even as far as the clothes you wear. They are designed in a way where you have to keep going back for the same thing, but in a new package, in a new design, and in a new color. Likewise is the case in politics. It's the same corrupt, disgusting characters in different colors, different shapes, and different sizes. We've seen countries, for example, in North Africa, who have profited off of the Jenny A side, and they have certainly executed not only strategic business developments, but also movements that have allowed scumrail to enter into territory that was once unimaginable. Apart from the Golan Heights, of course, now with hundreds and hundreds of contacts from the air, these hundreds and hundreds of contacts from the air has resulted in scumrail capturing and entering into more Syrian territory than ever expected. Will they or won't they reach Damascus as of the 14th of December, the 13th of Jumada al-Thani? We'll see. I can't say. What I know for a fact is credit where credit is due. They have certainly and continually are dominating the world in cybersecurity, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and technology as a whole. My background is in psychology, neuroscience, and mind, matter, and meaning is essentially the pursuit of the truth with the capital T. Whilst we dig through and try and tackle and grasp and wrestle with truths with a small t. And over the years, I've been trying to perfect not only my speaking and writing, but also my understanding of the world. Just so when I leave this earth at some point, may Allah give us a noble death. Ameen. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Mind, matter, meaning continues. This is for the curious and to the generations that follow. We all know the hadith, or at least most of us do. The weakest form of iman, the weakest form of faith, is hating and disliking something in your heart. And the strongest is taking action with your hands, which by extension is your legs and movements, politically, economically, scientifically, socially, so on and so forth. In my case, I choose the intellectual route. I'm more connected to the world of neuroscience biotechnology and research. How does that fit into everything I've been speaking about so far? Well, the Muslims as a whole are far behind. And although we love to see reverts accepting Islam, whether it's through TikTok or YouTube or other places, we certainly disregard the fire that's in our own house. In fact, we have to, at the end of the day, ensure that we can address this issue as soon as possible. And the reason for this is because at the end of the day, Syria is not just stepping at Syria. Al-Jubilani was once the most hated man on planet Earth. Now he's a moderate rebel, conveniently wearing the attire of the enemy, sitting with the enemy, interviewing with the enemy, and in fact repeating the same acts that the enemy wishes for him to do. Where is he getting his funding from? Who is he connected with? How many intelligence agencies like the KIA or the RISAD are involved? I don't know. I don't have this information, and quite frankly, I don't wish to have this information. Because at the end of the day, I will not kill myself, neither harm an animal, a child, or anyone else, Muslim or non-Muslim, and irrespective of their gender, sexual orientation, religion, and so on. All I'm interested in harming is falsehood and the lies that lie around us, and so conveniently packaged as a truth with headlines and tweets and social media posts and conversations in business meetings, in the office, on the train, in the car, so on and so forth. I believe at the end of the day, every soul is responsible for themselves, as the Quran says. These are not my words, these are the words of my Lord, the King of all kings, Allah. And Allah never ever underdelivers on His promises. The promise, of course, at the end of the day, for the wrongdoers and the transgressors is hell, and heaven for those who do the complete opposite. Even Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam instructed us to spread my word, even if it's in one ayah. Ayah in this context is a verse, also means sign. So even in one verse, you spread the message. The verse I would like to mention now, as we move towards the conclusion, is from chapter 1, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. We only ask for assistance and aid and help from Allah, and only Allah alone. No one else. We don't need to go to anyone's grave. We don't need to go to anyone in a cave. We don't need to travel far and wide or attend any elaborate events, go to some person that for some weird reason managed to kill someone by touching them. It's all a scam. At the end of the day, it's Allah who's going to help us. But prior to that, we have to gain power. We have to gain the fortitude to address the weaknesses we have. Much like the human body, we have weaknesses that as time goes on, we eventually succumb to our illnesses and diseases. Even if you're a perfectly healthy person, death is inevitable. So in such a case, the way I see it, despite the actual atrocities happening in Rafah, for example, we saw in the year Flower Massacre, we saw many other massacres happening in Khan Yunis, in Syria, and other parts of Falasteen. We of course saw some other situations happening in Aviv Tel. We saw also situations happening in other parts of the world. At the moment in Georgia, we're seeing some really bizarre behavior happening in Romania. We of course seeing things happening in south of Korea, or South Korea, should I say. Nothing is in our control because at the end of the day, there's a bigger game being played. I don't necessarily mean by the banking families of the Barings and the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the Medicis. In fact, we don't even know their names. But we do know there is something called the deep state, which I would agree with most of our non-Muslim friends online and offline, but mostly online, who speak of a deep state that control everything. And of course, they control politicians, which is not an issue because they control the economy. They have shares in almost every single company, every single consumable you can imagine. Solution? Well, as the title suggests, a career you wish to leave is a career of virtue. Work on your virtues and then see how you can dominate your own space. I've listed mine a bit earlier. Question is, what are yours? Maybe you're a fantastic fitness person. Pursue that. Maybe you're great at mergers and acquisitions of companies and use and utilize that skill as well as the finances to help the Muslim Ummah in the best way you can. Maybe you're better at helping others in the healthcare sector, for example. Pursue that. Point is, at the end of the day, you have to do what you have to do. And there are numerous updates coming in. For example, the Dutch court rejects bid to halt arms exports to Israel. Scumrow, as Gaza war rages. This is a report from Al Jazeera. And how does this even happen? How are ICC and ICJ arrest warrants just swept to the side? How is that even possible? Who's calling the shots? Well, as I mentioned, there are bigger companies behind all of this. You can look at, for example, Bain Capital and many other venture capitalist firms that have initiated technologies and companies that we rely on, from the Metas to the TikToks to the Dells to the Teslas and so on and so forth. What are Muslims doing? Yeah, maybe Afghanistan has made a truck, but what's the point of that? That's about 100-year-old technology. Even Afghanistan didn't win any war against America. America could not sustain staying there, so they left. And we all know in what manner they left. Likewise, in Masr, things are getting out of hand inflation-wise. Turkey, they're looking to fight the Kurds via Syria, and of course provide the scumradies with as much air support and land support and sea support as they can. Maybe land not so much, but sea and air, there's enough evidence. Same with Morocco. Pakistan, again, giving corridors for the Western powers. At the end of the day, as I mentioned, credit where credit is due. America have the right to rule the world, and that includes us. But realistically, over the past 100 years, 150 years or so, the Muslims are not in the superpower conversation. Throughout the Muslim history, with many dynasties we've had, with much control we've had over the Holy Land, as many would call it. But for us, of course, that's Makkah wa Medina. Not only that, but many parts of Europe, Eurasia, Caucasus regions, Southeast Asia, the Africans, and so on and so forth. We've managed to keep order for a long time. But I guess the Ottomans made a huge mistake once they split the Kaaba in 4 sections. So what I mean is, the Kaaba for a very long time, up until the Saud family took over, was divided into 4 sections. 4 Sunni madhabs, schools of thought, Hanfi, Maliki, Hanbali, Shafi'i, they were split in four. I'm not saying that's the reason of the downfall of the Ottoman Empire. Some say it's because they refused to use pig fat in weaponry. I don't know, really, what the cause is. But what I can say with confidence is dividing the religion is absolutely prohibited as per not only the Quran but also logic in and of itself. Two things cannot be true at the same time. At the end of the day, we are seeing many contracts in terms of arms dealing being approved around the world. For example, here we see Israel approved $718 million deal for new Navy missile ships. And these Navy missile ships are not just any ordinary missile ships. These are state of the art. And these are not obviously being used to conquer a superpower. This is used and intended to deploy fear in the enemy from their perspective, which essentially is individuals who look more or less like myself and believe in Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We make dua, we supplicate, and we also pray to Allah as the circumstances change for all the Muslims around the world. Ameen. Inshallah, as time goes on, I'll be sharing my own thoughts, not because I'm looking to necessarily monetize anything here or gain some fame or anything along those lines. I'm simply following the hadith of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as reported in Sahih Muslim. Once someone dies, only 3 good deeds will benefit him or her in the grave: leaving behind a righteous child that prays for you, which by extension means praying in general; ongoing charity, build a school, a mosque, a water pump, help the needy, so on and so forth. Number 3, which applies to this medium, is leaving behind beneficial knowledge: books, podcasts, newsletters, so on and so forth. So in that case, if you're interested in my written work, you can subscribe to my Medium channel, and you can reach out to me via email as well. I'm more than happy to interact with individuals and discuss ideas and how I can possibly be of value. And I'm always open to hearing new ideas, whether it's in the world of business, biotech, neuroscience, any type of research in AI, and other fields as well. Till next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.